May 26th, 1940. Dunkirk, France. The dawn air is thick with smoke and sea mist. Artillery thunders in the distance, each blast echoing across the dunes. On the horizon, the flames of burning oil tanks rise higher than the church steeples, painting the sky a furious red. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Gordon, Royal Engineers, British Expeditionary Force, stands knee-deep in sand near the eastern edge of the beach. Around him, chaos. Tens of thousands of soldiers stretch as far as the eye can see. Lines of khaki uniforms pressed against the tide, waiting for ships that never seem to come. They'll slaughter us out here, a private mutters, clutching his rifle. Gordon doesn't answer. His face is drawn, eyes fixed on the water. The tide is coming in fast, but the water stays shallow for hundreds of yards. Large ships can't get anywhere near the beach. Men wade out to waist-deep water, hoping for rescue, only to be turned back by gunfire or waves. Overhead, German bombers drone in lazy circles. When their sirens scream, everyone drops flat, hands over heads, as the sand erupts in geysers of smoke and flame. The stench of cordite and salt water mixes with diesel and fear. When the air raid finally ends, Gordon trudges toward a group of Royal Engineers working near a half-submerged truck. One of them, a young sapper named Edwards, shouts over the wind, "Sir, we can't keep loading from the beach. The big ships can't come close enough." Gordon nods grimly. "Then we'll have to bring the beach to the ships." He kneels, tracing a rough line in the sand with a stick. His voice is calm, deliberate. "We'll use what we have. Trucks, planks, crates, anything that floats. We'll build a pier out there." The men stare at him. The idea sounds mad. A pier made of lorries, in open surf, under bombardment? But Gordon's mind is already working faster than doubt. He glances toward the surf, where the tide surges and recedes, and beyond it, the faint shape of a destroyer waiting offshore. If they could just reach it. In the distance, a formation of Stukas begins its descent, their engines screaming like banshees. Gordon stands his ground as the sand kicks up around him. "We build tonight," he says, "or no one leaves Dunkirk." The impossible pier. Night of May 26th, 1940. Darkness descends over Dunkirk like a shroud. The fires from the oil tanks light the night sky, flickering orange against the smoke that rolls in from the sea. Somewhere beyond the dunes, machine guns rattle, and tracer fire arcs like fireflies over the water. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Gordon stands on the wet sand beside a growing pile of wrecked trucks. His engineers, mud-soaked, sleepless, and deafened by the day's bombardment, work by the dim light of lanterns. They move like shadows, voices hoarse and low. "Pull the Bedford up, slowly. Watch the current, damn it, she's drifting. Keep those timbers steady." Each truck, abandoned or damaged by retreating units, is dragged toward the surf by ropes and manpower. The plan is audacious, absurd even. They'll drive the trucks into the sea in a long line, nose to tail, until their roofs sit just above the water. Then, with planks and crates, they'll lash them together to form a makeshift jetty, a mole. The first lorry goes in, its headlights darkened, wheels churning through wet sand until the engine sputters and dies. Waves crash against its sides, rocking it like a child's toy. Gordon wades in beside it, seawater up to his waist. "Secure it here," he shouts over the wind. "Then bring the next one forward." Sappers tie ropes around axles, hammer spikes into the truck beds, and lay wooden planks across the roofs. It's crude, uneven, but it holds. One by one, more trucks follow. Bedfords, Austins, even a captured French Renault. The structure grows outward, truck by truck, into the moonlit surf. Hours pass. The tide rises. Twice, the line nearly collapses when the waves surge too high. A sapper is swept off his feet and pulled under. His body vanishes into the darkness. No one stops. By midnight, the first section of the pier stretches nearly 100 yards into the sea. Exhausted men reinforce it with crates, barrels, and scavenged timbers. Gordon checks the supports, teeth chattering, hands raw from rope burns. From somewhere inland, the thump of artillery echoes closer. Dunkirk is shrinking by the hour. Just before dawn, a British destroyer creeps toward shore. HMS Havant, signaling with her lamp. "Can you load?" Gordon wipes salt water from his face and raises a flare. "We're ready." The first column of soldiers, Royal Warwickshire men, marches down the beach, boots squelching in the wet sand. They step onto the lorry pier cautiously at first, testing it. The trucks creak and sway under their weight, but they hold. One by one, they move across, silhouetted against the firelight, rifles slung, helmets glinting. When the first man reaches the ship and climbs aboard, a cheer ripples down the line, muted but real. For the first time in days, there's hope. Gordon stands ankle-deep in surf, watching as the pier holds against the tide, the wind, and the war itself. Behind him, thousands more soldiers begin to move. The beach comes alive with motion. Lines of men, silhouettes of wrecks, the distant flash of flares. The impossible pier is working. And by morning, Dunkirk, once a trap, has become an artery of escape. The miracle unfolds. May 27th to 31st, 1940. By sunrise, the sea is a battlefield. Waves roll red with oil and debris, the surf littered with helmets and the blackened hulls of half-sunk craft. Yet, amid the chaos, a single line of trucks stretches from the beach like a defiant scar, Gordon's mole. From dawn until dusk, it never rests. Men move across it in endless streams, Royal Engineers, Guardsmen, French poilus, and even cooks and clerks turned soldiers, all shuffling toward the waiting ships. Every few minutes, a German plane swoops low, machine guns hammering the surf. The soldiers dive for cover, hugging the planks and truck roofs as bullets spark off metal. Then, when the aircraft vanish, they rise and keep moving. "Come on, lads," an officer shouts, voice ragged from smoke. "Keep it steady. Keep it moving." Lieutenant Colonel Gordon paces the length of the pier, his uniform soaked, his boots coated in oil and salt. Every few hours, he and his men patch new holes with whatever they can find. Timber scavenged from wrecked ships, spare tires, even the doors ripped off abandoned lorries. "This thing shouldn't stand," mutters one engineer as he hammers a plank into place. "Aye," Gordon replies, and yet it does. The tide is merciless, sometimes tearing entire sections away. But the engineers adapt, rebuilding faster than the sea can destroy. Nearby, other groups follow Gordon's example, creating new makeshift jetties, improvised piers of trucks, barrels, and pontoons, sprouting like desperate roots along the beach. By the second day, they're loading men by the thousands. Destroyers anchor as close as they dare, while smaller craft, motor launches, lifeboats, fishing boats, even pleasure yachts, weave between them, ferrying soldiers to the larger ships offshore. One Royal Navy officer, watching the scene from his binoculars, mutters in awe, "It's madness." And it's working. By nightfall, the horizon glows with ships, a floating city under fire. Searchlights cut across the haze, finding columns of men wading chest-deep in the surf, arms linked to keep from being swept away. Others climb onto the truck pier, faces illuminated by the orange reflection of burning fuel tanks on shore. When the Luftwaffe returns at dusk, the sound is deafening. Engines screaming, bombs whistling, the beach erupting in plumes of sand and steel. One explosion tears through the western edge of the pier, sending water and debris skyward. Men tumble into the surf. "Hold the line!" Gordon roars, voice hoarse. "Rebuild it, now!" Without waiting for orders, sappers sprint forward, dragging ropes and boards through the rising tide. They work blind, under fire, while the next column of soldiers keeps moving forward. Because stopping would mean death. By the third day, word spreads. The engineer's mole is saving thousands. Commanders redirect entire regiments to Gordon's sector. Soldiers whisper about the miracle on the beach, a pier made of lorries that defied the sea and the Germans alike. One corporal, watching from the dunes, shakes his head. "Never thought I'd thank a damn truck for saving my life." By May 30th, over 150,000 men have escaped. Every ship, from trawlers to destroyers, carries its limit and more. And still, they keep coming. Gordon hasn't slept in nearly 4 days. His hands are blistered, uniform black with oil. But he refuses to leave the shoreline. When a naval officer tells him he should rest, he simply replies, "When the last man boards, I'll rest." That night, standing on his creation, he watches the final convoy of the day fade into the darkness. Ships heavy with soldiers, their lights dimmed, their engines a low hum against the wind. He turns back to the beach, where tens of thousands still wait. The pier creaks under the waves, but holds. It has to. The last night at Dunkirk. June 2nd, 1940. The final night at Dunkirk is thick with fog and fire. The beach, once filled with endless columns of soldiers, is nearly empty now. Craters and wrecked vehicles scar the sand, while the distant boom of naval guns echoes like thunder across the channel. The sea glows faintly red, reflecting the burning fuel tanks that still rage behind the dunes. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Gordon stands at the water's edge beside what remains of his makeshift pier. The line of trucks, his impossible mole, is battered and broken, some half submerged, others twisted by the tides. Yet it still stretches into the surf, creaking under the slow rhythm of the waves. Only a handful of sappers remain with him, men who refuse to leave until the last possible ship departs. Their uniforms are torn, faces streaked with soot. One of them, young Edwards, coughs through the smoke. "Sir," he says softly, "they say we've done it. 200,000, maybe more." Gordon doesn't reply at first. He looks out toward the black horizon, where the silhouettes of ships fade into mist. Destroyers, trawlers, tugboats, all crammed with the men they saved. "No," he says at last. "They did it. We just gave them a way home." A flare arcs into the sky from the western beach, green, then white. The signal for final evacuation. The remaining engineers move down the pier for one last check. Tightening ropes, hammering loose planks, ensuring it will hold even for one more hour. The Luftwaffe returns just before midnight. Searchlights sweep across the sea, followed by the eerie wail of Stukas diving through the fog. Explosions tear through the shallows, sending geysers of water over the battered trucks. The men duck instinctively, gripping the planks. "They're still trying to kill a miracle," mutters Edwards. When the bombing subsides, the engineers rise and carry on. They guide the last group of soldiers across the pier. Royal Navy beach crews and medical orderlies, faces hollow with exhaustion. One officer pauses halfway across, looking down at the trucks beneath his boots. "This thing shouldn't stand," he says quietly. Gordon manages a faint smile. "Aye. But then again, neither should we." By 2 a.m., the beach falls silent. The last launch pulls away, its small engine sputtering toward the final ship offshore. The tide rises higher now, licking the edges of the lorries that once stood proud against the sea. Gordon steps onto the first truck, boots splashing in knee-deep water. He runs a gloved hand along the cold metal as if saying goodbye. Around him, the engineers gather their tools, ready to withdraw. In the darkness, the wind carries faint sounds from across the channel. Bells, perhaps, or just the echo of the sea. Britain is waiting. He turns to his men. "That's it, lads. Our work's done." They wade through the surf toward the final rescue craft. Behind them, the pier of trucks groans and shifts, pieces breaking away and vanishing beneath the waves. By dawn, it's almost gone. Only fragments remain jutting from the tide, battered and half-submerged. But it has done its job. Nearly 340,000 men have escaped the trap. When Gordon finally steps aboard the small patrol boat, he glances back one last time. The coastline of Dunkirk fades behind a wall of smoke and fire, the ruins of a miracle dissolving into history. He removes his helmet and breathes deeply, the salt air filling his lungs. "Built to fall apart," he murmurs. But it held long enough. As the boat turns toward England, the first light of dawn breaks over the horizon, revealing a sky washed clean of ash. The impossible pier, born of desperation, built by hand, and held together by courage, has vanished beneath the waves. But its legacy will outlast the sea. It was never meant to stand forever, only long enough to save a nation.